In my previous video, I called out the African gourd in one of the scenes of this mural, so we actually have two mystery foods in the same mural. Since America was supposed to be isolated prior to 1492, corn is a food that was not supposed to be known to the old world, and the other food, the African gourd, wasn't supposed to be in the Americas. When I saw it, I logically thought that it was proof that an African brought the gourd to America. And in the mural, the black character has an African gourd on his head. It speaks for itself. Unless the gourd grew in Africa, made its way to the ocean, crossed the Atlantic, successfully planted itself, then grew wild, and was later discovered by Native Americans. Well, according to this paper, that's exactly what happened. The African person could not cross the Atlantic, but the African gourd, yeah, that's a different story. And it's not just a story, it's his story until proven otherwise. I read the paper and I still have my doubts, so I enlisted Gemini, the Google AI, to debate me on the transoceanic drift and the domestication of African bottle gourds in the Americas. First, I want to know why they don't call it an American gourd, since the oldest African gourd is found in America. So I asked if the gourd could have originated in America and then went to Africa. But Gemini disagrees, and one of the reasons is this theory. I think this story is important because it's the history of the Afro-American gourd based on a computer model and a likely chain of events that landed this Afro gourd on the shores of America. The story starts with an African gourd, and maybe his name is Gordon, and his Gordy Buena. Of course, they also have little gorditos, and Gordon is sad to say goodbye. You can even see a tear on his gourd because he knows it's a one-way mission. Even Gemini thinks it's a fascinating story, highlighting the incredible journeys life can take. Here's a likely chain of events piecing together the scientific understanding of how the African bottle gourd made its way to the Americas. Deep in the ancient landscapes of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in southern Africa, the wild ancestor of the bottle gourd thrives. It's a vine that grows large, hard-shelled fruits perfectly adapted for survival. These fruits are not yet domesticated in the human sense, but their natural properties are key to their future journey. Picture a wild gourd vine growing near a riverbank that eventually empties into the Atlantic Ocean or along a coastal area. A ripe gourd, perhaps detached by a storm, an animal, or simply reaching the end of its life cycle, falls into the flowing water. It's buoyant, so it floats. Gourd is carried by the river out into the vast expanse of the Atlantic. Here, it's picked up by powerful transoceanic currents, particularly the South Equatorial Current, which flows westward from the African coast towards the Americas. These currents are like conveyor belts of the ocean. After potentially many months of drifting, scientists estimate as little as 100 days to over 9 months, depending on the currents, the gourd washes ashore on one distant coastline of the Americas. The gourd, still intact, might be deposited high on a beach by a storm surge, or caught in a mangrove root, or simply come to rest on a muddy bank. Crucially, some of the seeds inside the gourd have remained viable. A new gourd vine begins to grow, its tendrils reaching out, establishing a foothold for its species in this new continent. This marks the successful transoceanic dispersal. As the first gourd vines produce new fruits, these fruits might be eaten by large herbivores that roam America at that time, such as mammoths, mastodons, or giant ground sloths. As human populations in the Americas develop and spread, they encounter these newly established wild gourd plants. Early hunter-gatherers, keen observers of their environment, quickly recognized the unique properties of the gourd. And that is how the gourd and this mural got to the Americas. Back to the Gemini debate, I thought it would be simpler for a person to bring the gourd with them, since we know that Thor Heyerdahl crossed the Atlantic in a papyrus boat in 1970, and Hans Linderman crossed the Atlantic in a dugout tree canoe in 1955. Gemini disagreed, and then he hit me with the extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which was basically an AI knockout, and Gemini claimed victory. But what do you think? Is this the history of the Afro-American gourd? Leave a comment, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.